Oops. Got it. There we go. Okay. All right, Mr. Chair, we are ready. Technical glitch corrected. So we're ready to start with the pledge whenever you are.
Okay, let's all stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic
for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen. Thank you. So here we are, December 8th, 2020 at about 1:05. Let's call this meeting to order. We do not have a quorum at this time. So we will table the two action items, and we'll start with the amendments to the agenda. Director Elaine, you have any amendments?
No amendments from staff, Mr. Chair.
Okay. All right. So we'll hold on the minutes of October 21st, 2021. We'll go to number 4, board member reports. And this should be quick. Let's start with Mr. Van Tine.
So first, an explanation of the shirt. Since I went to my closet to look for the ugliest Christmas sweater that I had, and my wife reminded me that we got rid of all those and exchanged them for these kind of shirts, because when it really gets cold, we go look for sand and places that have drinks with little umbrellas in them. And so I hope the meeting's not going to be too long today, because of what I'm partaking in, but which is really good.
I like that. That's the way to start us off.
So I have a short report, but I do have 4 items that I'd like to share with the board and with the public. Last month, or the last meeting that we had, I reported on the progress of Wings Over the Rocky Captain Jefferson Foundation flying scholarships that are being given to young people age 15 to 18. Since then, the board has met, and beginning in January, very early in January, on the Wings Over the Rockies website, you'll find a call for applications for scholarship recipients for the 2022 round of James Ray Wings Over the Rockies scholarships. And there'll be approximately 20 scholarships given at $10,000 a piece. In the previous 3 years that we've done this, the board gave scholarships also for glider flying, but that program is impacted. There's so many people learning to fly gliders, and so many of our young people who have got scholarships have not only soloed, but gotten their certificate. And so there won't be a glider component to the scholarships this year. But again, for everybody, if you know somebody in that age group, 15 to 18, that wants to learn to fly and serious about it, the scholarship applications will open in January. I also want to talk about exploration of flight at Wings Over the Rockies, just because here we have this great resource that's inside the airport fence at Centennial Airport. This past weekend, they held their, at the beginning of the first Saturday of every month, they have a pancake event. They had 362 people come for pancakes and breakfast, 34 aircraft on display. So every month, every time they have this event, more and more people are coming to the airport and going to, and getting behind the fence, as I said, or on the inside of the fence, and getting to see aviation and touch and feel aviation. The many other events that are going on at Wings, at the Exploration of Flight that are coming up. On the 19th, they have Santa, but On the 22nd of January, they have drones as a career, and that's at the center. It's something that's really interesting. Last report I gave, I talked about that they have relocated the RV-8 project that kids are building this airplane from the Lowry Museum over to Exploration of Flight. And next week they're going to do an engine start. So that continues. The other thing that's kind of interesting is that facility is being used more and more by companies and other organizations for events, because it is a very, very unique setting, very engaging. And so, and one of those events happened last week, which was the retirement celebration for Robert Oslogers. And I want to tell you, there were a lot of very distinguished speakers. Our own David Ulane got up and just was articulate and exceptional in his recognition and honoring of Robert Oslogers, and told a couple of really good stories that were very relevant to him. So again, Robert, very having been on this board and very close to many of us, is concluding his career, and it was a nice send off. And Dave, you did just an outstanding job, I think, recognizing him. And then the last thing that's on my list is many of you have seen the article that was in the Denver Post concerning Metro State and the discussion around the fact that four-year schools with students who come and receive those degrees, can reduce the requirement for ATP from $1,500 to 1,000 hours. It's restricted until they get 1,500 hours, but they're able to fly in the right seat of the aircraft. And of course, with the pilot shortage that's here and is going to continue to grow, it's important that these kind of considerations be made. Of course, the FAA made a change in 2003 after the Colgan Air incident in Buffalo, and changed the requirement for ATP from 250 hours to 1,500 hours. Personally, I think they overstepped, and so they found an elegant way to bring that back, where students coming out of four-year programs, aviation programs, can reduce the requirement to 1,000 hours. If they're coming out with an associate degree, they need 1,250 hours of experience before they get the restricted ATP. The important thing about that article, besides highlighting the change, is that it recognized not only Metro State and the program that's there, but also Colorado Northwestern Community College up in Wrangley. And I think that college is one of the best kept secrets in Colorado. They have a flying program. They own aircraft. They maintain the program. They also have degrees in aviation maintenance technology. They've opened a satellite operation for flight training in conjunction and associated with Metro over at your airport, over at the space facility. And so it's great that we have these kind of educational capabilities within the state, and probably don't get pointed out or recognized enough. Both colleges have outstanding programs. They have many students now that are coming there to do their flight training, to get their either associate or four-year degree, bachelor's degree, and then are moving into aviation. So I wanted to point that out. If you didn't see the article, take a look at the Sunday Denver Post. And that's my report.
And I have to say, thank you, Mark. That's and I remember Dr. Jeffrey Forrest, who is also a former chair, talking about this several years ago. So kudos to Metro State University. So excellent. Mr. Holsinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, following up on Mark's great report, nobody can think of anywhere but Walden when you talk about sun and sand. So if any of you haven't been there before, and especially if you fly into 33 Victor, Walden actually has 2 sand dunes on the east side of the park, snug up against the Medicine Bow Range. And at the high school there, the North Park High School, there's a display from shark teeth from the sand dunes that students have found on field trips over the years when the West was a giant inland sea millions of years ago. So if ever you're in the area, the North Sand Dunes are open to the public, and they're quite the recreation hotspot. Not much to report.
Degrees right now. Bring some beach chairs. We should just have our meeting there.
That's a great idea. The weather's never bad in Walden in December.
Oh, okay.
I did hear from the president of the airport board for Glenwood Springs Airport, given the controversy there and the tension with city council and the mayor about trying to shorten the runway, which would in essence make the airport unusable. They were excited and anxious to hear about our upcoming CDAG grants and how that might help with their airport and its efforts to stay open. So excited to hear more about that today, and thanks for the opportunity.
Excellent, thank you. Chaz, I see you're on with us.
Good morning, or good afternoon, I should say. I've been on meetings all day, so.
Good afternoon, Chaz. How are you?
I'm good, and thanks everyone. My report is not going to be as eloquent or as funny or interesting as some of the others, but I do have good news to report, and that is we have made an offer, and he has accepted the offer for the Colorado Air and Spaceport Director's job. His name is Jeff Kloska. I'm sure probably a lot of you know who that is. He's a graduate of Metro State. He worked as Senior Airport Operations Specialist out of Dallas Love Field Airport, Assistant Director of Aviation at City of Fort Worth, Aviation Planner and Management Consultant at Javiation, and Aviation Airport Management Consultant at North Central Texas Council of Governments. We're proud to have, been able to find a new director. It's been quite the change. We definitely are in need, and we are still ongoing for the deputy director position. So we will keep you informed as to how that falls in with Adams County and the Colorado Air and Spaceport. Again, on a personal note, I just wanted to tell everyone that, I am going to be bragging about my son-in-law. He's impressing me every day. I know a lot of people don't say that about their son-in-laws, but I will tell you, this guy has impressed me to no end. He is actually starting to fly turbine helicopters out of White Plains, New York. And if you haven't been to White Plains, I don't know how he got this job, but I definitely got into the wrong field when I was young and his age. So I just wanted to say that because I'm really proud of him. Thank you for the time, and I appreciate it.
Excellent update. And I wanted to just say that excellent selection with Jeff. He has a great reputation in the industry. So you are, I am confident you will not be disappointed. And he's a young man, and he will be a great source of energy for Adams County. So I'm surprised he actually took the job after what I told him about you, but that's pretty good. So no, that's a great selection, Chaz. And yeah, he has a very good diverse background and experience. So he'll be a wonderful addition. Confident you'll be pleased. Okay, so I am going to, I'm not as I don't have as pretty a face as Trimby, but I'm going to give Trimby is not able to join us because she's in SkyWest training. So she's just outstanding. Congratulations to her success. And she shared an update that I was going to share with everyone as a representative of the Colorado Pilots group. And starting with the Women in Aviation International Mile High chapter, they enjoyed a private tour of the Denver United Airlines maintenance hangar on Friday, led by United's female A&Ps. Women in Aviation Mile High held a vintage Warbird, vintage glamour photo shoot thanks to the help of Jeff Hinkle and the Colorado Commemorative Air Force and the Colorado Aviation Historical Society. There will be a holiday gathering at the members' home. Trimby is very much looking forward to hosting the FAA event on January 19th to the 23rd at Rocky Mountain Metro Airport. And the sign up as well as a volunteer sign up are on the milehighchapter.com website. She did include a short video that I won't show, but the sign up for, I guess it's to Blondie, the sign up is, has 105 spots reserved with 145 spots remaining open. So want to share this event. There's 4 FAA gentlemen that are excited to get the, what is the PR pilot? Does anybody know what PROT means? PR.
Kenny, that stands
OT.
for Reduced Oxygen Training Environment. I can't remember what the P is, but it's the
I
low
can help
altitude.
out.
Oh,
Okay.
sorry. Go ahead, Casey.
Yeah, it's the portable reduced oxygen training enclosure.
Thank you. And
No
PROT,
problem.
did I say that right? Is it PROT that you acronym?
That's correct.
Okay, thanks. And then the Colorado Pilots Association held an aerial firefighting speaker event in October, and our own David Ulane spoke at the November event. The Colorado Pilots Association continues to collaborate with Wings Over the Rockies, exploration of flight at Centennial, and promotion of the monthly pilot fly-in and famous pancake breakfast. Additionally, they host regular socials at FlightCo. Colorado Pilots Association will plan the 2022 flying calendar in January. So the Colorado Pilots Association is not hosting a holiday gathering this year, unfortunately. Colorado Aviation Business Association has a pilot volunteer holiday airlift event at Centennial Airport in collaboration with Signature Flight Support. And they expect great weather Sunday for delivering holiday cheer with toys and non-perishable foods. Aviation, MSU flying team, and the Colorado VFW volunteer time planes and goodies will be there. Colorado 99s held a recent flying and carbon monoxide poisoning educational event. Additionally, at a recent Regional 99s event, 9 Colorado members had the pleasure of meeting with the female astronaut Wally Funk. Side note, David and I've met her and had a photo with her a few times at the WAI conference where she and I first met. She is incredibly. The Colorado 99s will host a holiday event at the Western Air Flight Academy at Rocky Mountain Metropolitan Airport. The Civil Air Patrol continues to fly and inspire. EAA, there's no report, hopefully soon. Angel Flight West, no report, hopefully soon. Colorado Seaplane Association, no update until spring when they can start flying Lake Meredith and Kenny Reservoir again. UAS Colorado held a holiday gathering in Boulder near the airport Friday with guest speaker Black Swift Technologies, 10-year pioneers of extreme environment UAS operations. And we'll soon have an electric aircraft organization. I'm sure in the meantime, we'll celebrate By Aerospace and their advances. And remember, I've been talking to Boom Supersonic, and we're still invited to participate in the cab private tour of Boom Supersonic. Just say the word and Trimby will arrange. So thanks, gratitude, and holiday cheer to all. So that's what Trimby had to say. As far as from my perspective on the Western Slope, I will say all indications and every airport manager that I talked to that 2021 has been an outstanding year. for resort airports, as well as really everyone on the western slope. Employments on commercial air service are bouncing back to 2019 levels. So we're excited about that. We're just, I think we're really happy to finish the year strong. So everybody seems to be pretty upbeat and very optimistic as we go into the end of the year and enjoy our holiday season. So if we could just kind of, see if there'll ever be at least a change in our pandemic situation. Hopefully we look forward to 2022. So that's all I have as far as board member reports. Did I miss anybody? Don't think I did. So with that, I think I'd like to backtrack to item number 3 now that Chaz is on board, and look at the approval of the meeting minutes for October 21st, 2021. So I'll look for a motion in a second.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Second.
Seconded by Kent. All those in favor, I say
Aye.
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 Excellent. So we got our approval of the meeting minutes. Our next item, number 5 on the agenda, public comments. I know we have a lot of, I see that we have the airport manager in Glenwood Springs on the line. We have a lot of great friends, but does anyone from the public like to have anything they'd like to share? Checking my chat, I don't see anything. I know Scott or Todd's looking at that.
Yeah,
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I did not see anybody sign up yet, but I was going to see if anybody piped up while you had opened it up. So
Don't make me call out Meredith Fox. I will. All right.
Well, Mr. Chairman, she is scheduled to speak at a later agenda item.
Okay. Okay, great. Okay, well, I don't see anyone going. Let's move on to the next item. The director's report. Director Elaine.
Thanks,
Floor is
Mr.
yours.
Chair. Not a whole lot to talk about this meeting since we just had a director's report go out a couple of weeks ago, but 2 things I'll update you on. First and foremost would be cab member reappointments. I think most of you are familiar with the fact that Mr. Mampa and Mr. Myers both had their first full 3-year terms. They expire this December 19th. I've learned from the governor's office that they have both been reappointed to a second 3-year term. So Mr. Chair, congratulations. Staff's going to continue to look forward to working with you and Mr. Myers for your next term. So I will share with you the executive order from the governor's office as soon as I get that. I would expect that by the end of this week. So again, congratulations to you both for that. The other item to talk about real quickly is our 2022 Aeronautical Board Advocacy Resolution. And just by way of review, at the first CAB meeting of each calendar year, the CAB for the last 6 years has been adopting an annual advocacy resolution, which outlines your positions on a variety of federal and state legislative, regulatory, and policy matters. And I think as the director, I found that very, very helpful for me when I get asked what the division's position or the board's position is on a particular item of concern to the aviation community. As a state employee, I have to be a little bit careful about what I advocate for, and I have limits on how I can lobby do some of those things, but you all don't have those restrictions as appointed board members. So that resolution gives me the ability to come back to folks and say, here's what the Aeronautical Board thinks about that particular issue. So with the board packet that went out last week, I did send you the 2021 resolution. Mr. Chair, I'll look forward to working with you over the next month to talk about some updates to that. I think some of those things can come off because they've been completed this year. We maybe have some other things to come on, but for all of you other board members or even anybody out there from the public, of course, if there's something you think the division needs to be weighing in on, let us know. And our plan is to bring that advocacy resolution back to the board for their consideration at the February 1st CAB meeting in conjunction with CAOA. So we'll look forward to doing that again this year. And then the last thing I want to update you on is actually the first thing on my director's report in the packet. That's our division education grants and outreach specialist position. I am really excited to be able to present to you today the individual that we selected to fill that new position on our team. We're extremely excited about that. She just signed her employment offer this morning. So, Mr. Chair, it's my pleasure to introduce the newest member of the division team, Hetty Carlson. I think a lot of folks know Hetty. She's been around the aviation community for a long time. Yet another Metro State University aviation program alum. So we're happy to have her joining us. And I know you're on the call. I'd love for you to introduce yourself to the group and tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. I'm Hetty Carlson. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
I'm sitting in my carfus. As Dave said, I am a grad of MSU, and I most recently worked for about 8 years with Wings Over the Rockies, developing and managing their teacher flight program, which was a completely grant-funded program. Experienced a lot of success in giving teachers not just an amazing flight, but equipping them with aerospace resources to take back to the classroom and inspiring students and bridging that gap between students and the industry. I currently sit on the Aerospace Frontiers Education Committee, which addresses the needs of Colorado's school districts in starting STEM and aerospace focused programs. So I'm absolutely thrilled to be accepted into this position, and I'm really looking forward to growing the aviation education grant program and promoting aviation and aerospace workforce readiness in the state of Colorado. Thank you.
Outstanding, Hetty. Congratulations and welcome
Thank
to
you.
welcome to the aeronautical family and the state aeronautical family. And you're coming in. Your reputation is outstanding, and no question you're going to be a tremendous success with a high-level team like the Aeronautical Board, or Aeronautics Division. So, congratulations.
Thank you so much. I'm really looking forward to
And
working
Mr.
with the
Chair,
division.
Hetty.
Yep.
Mr. Chair, Hetty's first day on the job will be Monday, January 3rd, which is technically a holiday. So her first day will be Tuesday. So we'll look forward to her starting with us right after the first of the year.
What a way to start 22. Congratulations.
And that's it for my director's report, Mr. Chair, unless there's any questions or anything else I didn't cover.
Anyone have any questions? Okay. Then let's move on to number 7, the financial update. I understand, Dave, you're going to be filling in on that. Bryce.
Actually, Mr. Chair, Bryce is on the call today. We were unsure if he'd be able to join us, but he is here. So, Bryce, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thank you. All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. So we'll jump right into the numbers here like normal.
Let's do it.
Our first slide is our revenue update. So November revenue came in at 3.2 million, bringing our total revenue for the year to 15.3 million. Again, our FY22 forecast is at 33 million. It wasn't adjusted after Q1, but we will be re-looking at that here come January after Q2. So of that total revenue of 3.2 million, it was 101.6% of forecast of 3.1, so pretty close. In comparison, it was 297.8% of the 1.1 million of revenue in November 2020 and 92.8% of October 2019 revenue, or of 2021 revenue. So in December, we are forecasting 3 million in revenue as well. And then just an update as well, December is the last month that we are running 75% of 2019 numbers for our budget. January will see us roll that forecast over to historical trending as we've, for most purposes, returned to our regular monthly flows. So we will adjust those with next month's numbers as you see them for January forward forecast. Our next slide is our cash balance. The 160 balance ended November at 14.5 million. That was up about 515,000 from the 14 million at the end of October. And then December's month-end balance is projected to increase to 14.9 million. The increase in November was exactly as we'd forecasted, as fuel levels at Denver continue to normalize. Forecasts should continue to be close to accurate. So we continue to add funds to the account here, just with the low amount of grant balances currently out there as the largest driver. Next slide just looks at the tax disbursements by month. Last month in November, we had 2.1 million in disbursements, 1.9 million of which was sales tax, 181,000 was AvJet, and 12,000 was AvGas. Everything continues to follow the expected month-over-month transitions. Our next slide is the contingency slide. I'll wait for it to catch up here. Okay, so as approved by the CAB at our 2021 board meeting, our 2022 program was set at 8 million. As we move forward, that program is healthy, and the next part of my presentation here will be, I am recommending that the CAB take action at our February meeting to increase that number to 9 million for a CDAG program. We will get more into that, but I did want to show that on here as well, as we show the enhanced CDAG balance moving forward. As you can see, our cash balance on hand remains exceptionally strong and does support that increase. Current levels are at $65 per gallon of oil. It's actually above 70 today, and in the ballpark of 40 million gallons a month of flow at Denver. So our pricing is well above the actual pricing is well above our worst case format. So our contingency analysis remains strong, and we look set up for a healthy year coming up. Next slide is our admin expenses. Our mandated 5% cap is 849,000. Budget approved by the CAB in January 2021 was 725. Currently to date, we've expenditured 247,000 on admin costs with a projected spend of 709,000. So that would be 4.1% of FY21 revenue. So we are well within range on this. Next slide looks at fuel flow at Denver International Airport. November came in at 37.1 million gallons. That was down 7% from October's 39.8 million gallons, and up 153% from November 2020, and it's 97% of November 2019 numbers. Forecasting for December, the forecast is 38.1 million gallons. That would be 152% increase from December 2020. And in comparison to 2019, it's 85% of those numbers. As you can see from the line there, the 2021 numbers, they're actually the deep orange slide. That's my mistake. But we are tracking right along beside 2018 numbers as well. So things are looking normal and starting to normalize in regards to that. Good news as far as that goes. Our final slide is the monthly division expenditure breakdown. In total, there was 2.5 million in expenditures. Of that, 2.1 million was the tax expenditures and 370,000 of CDAG drawdowns. We're past the main construction season, so we don't anticipate any huge spikes, but anything within those, we'll see. The large expenditures will continue to be the tax disbursements going out. So nothing out of the ordinary as far as that goes. So before we move on, happy to answer any questions specifically about the dashboards.
Well, just noting that the previous slide, you did make that correction on the 2020 and the 2021 line that you had.
Yeah, so we are, like you said, we're tracking basically right below the 2019 numbers right now. So they are following very closely. So again, that bodes into our strategy as to why we're going to start tracking it month over month, historical trending starting next month.
Okay, Chaz has a question.
Yeah, I just had a quick question about the CDAG programming. And, you know, when you showed that slide, you showed it kind of cutting into that contingency fund. Does it change the contingency fund? And If so, how does it change it, and is it a negative? The contingency value.
So no, what it showed there, as far as cutting into it, it's bringing right there. So the blue body of that shows the projected year-end balance. So it does show that coming back up to where our contingency allocated is a lot closer to that number, which is beneficial. And I will talk about here on the next part here as we do updates as far as that, as to why we are doing that and what the positive is with that. Again, we don't want to have a massive, large cash balance on hand that isn't allocated somewhere. It's just bad budgeting practices. So by bringing that closer up to what the projected year-end cash balance is showing at, that will enable us to ensure that we keep that balance lower than what it is and is projected to be for sure, but a lot more tied into what the programs are.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions? Okay, Bryce, continue.
Okay, I'll let Sean move over here to the next part for the budget update for talking about FY22 CDAG and SWI. My connection's slow here, so just bear with me.
And there is
So you
no
should have
slide.
had-
There's no slide for
Okay.
this one, Mr. Chair.
Okay,
So in your packet, you did have the informational item summary. As we discussed the CDAG program for 2022. We had approved that, or you had approved that in August for $8 million to that program. At the next regular meeting on February 1st in 2022, staff will be recommending an additional $1 million be added to the 2022 CDAG program. That bring the total up to $9 million. That additional $1 million will mainly be earmarked for federal matching funds, as the impact of the new infrastructure bill has not been fully detailed for the airports, but we know that that is coming. However, it is important to note that that recommendation is being made by the business office, independent of that bill. Rather, it's derived given our current financial landscape and forecasted revenues and cash balance. So again, we have additional cash on hand, as we've seen in the last few months, being healthy, 500,000 a month that is coming in and staying in and not getting dispersed. So that extra $1 million adding to the program is, in my opinion, a smart strategical way to use that. Todd and his team already have the state and local projects roughly put together that I know we'll talk about at that February meeting as well. But this additional $1 million in funding is just helping us try to keep our cash balance close to our contingency level, so we don't have a stockpile of cash on there that isn't being utilized. So that's where that comes from. And then the other part of the informational item, again, we will be asking you to take action at the February meeting, but we're going to recommend funding the education program this year to the tune of $200,000 for FY22. That will not increase our overall SWI budget. We would actually be reallocating funds from the surplus equipment sale program, as well as AWAS maintenance. Both either aren't having spend, or in AWAS, the spend is quite a bit less than what had budgeted. So just moving money around to start that education program, given the health of our finances and the fact that we do have someone coming on board here in January. So both of those are informational at this point. We will ask for action on that at the next board meeting, but we wanted to get that information out in front of you here. I'm happy to answer any questions. I will just tack on the knowledge there. Given the current fluctuations within the market as far as new COVID variants and things like that, we have taken those into consideration. If there is any change where the industry basically gets turned off again like it did, we would react to that in our 2023 program. But as of now, given something catastrophic like that, and even right now, cash balance on hand, we're sitting up around 15 million. We have $3.5 million in open grants. So even this $9 million program that we're proposing if worse came to worse and the taps were turned off, we still have the cash on hand to cover these. It's future programs that would get adjusted with that. Again, impossible to budget based around those doomsday scenarios, nor is it responsible to do so. So that's where the recommendation is coming from on our behalf.
Yeah, and I think that it's important to note, I think that's a sound approach, because if you look at the rapid, really, the volumes out of fuel volume, now it's starting to approach the previous, the 2019, 2018 levels. But also you have, as you mentioned, the high oil prices. So that's a benefit to the division or to the aeronautic program because of that much additional revenue. So that's outstanding. Anybody else have any comments?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, if I might, I think just one of the things, we've had a lot of internal conversations about this. I think one of the other aspects that we talked at length about is if there is some other new development in the COVID-19 world that impacts air travel. I think we all have the benefit now of having lived through 2020, and we expect that the reaction will be much more measured and less drastic than it was, then when we really didn't know what we were up against. I think you've seen the World Health Organization this week said travel bans don't really stop the spread of the virus. They actually encourage travel to continue. We're seeing that kind of measured response from the administration back in DC. And so long story short, to kind of wrap up with the great work Bryce did, we have a pretty high cash balance. We don't want to make it too high. So we're going to have a great program next year. And if for some reason we need to adjust the 2024 program, we will certainly do that. 2023 program will do that. But we're looking forward to moving forward and keeping our eye on the ball, just as we have been for the last year and a half.
Outstanding. That's great. Nice work there, Bryce.
Thank you.
Next item on the under finance update is Scott, would you like to talk about the Durango internship grant?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, so this is just informational update that we provide to you each meeting when internship funding is requested. As you all know, the CAB approves annually the FY22 budget, and that was done this January so that we can react quickly when funds are requested. But since the last meeting, Durango had requested funding for a 6-month-long airport operations internship at Durango. Their wage is $18 an hour, and so our 50% grant that we issued to support that internship totaled $9,360. And that was the only intern update we have for you since the last meeting, and I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
No, I think that's excellent, and boy, the opportunity to work with Tony in Durango, what a great opportunity. Okay. Anybody else have any comments? Seeing none, let's move to item number 8. Mr. Setterberg, I want to talk about the 2022 aeronautical chart and airport directory update.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, we're in the process now of updating both of our main publications, being the Colorado Airport Directory and the Colorado Aeronautical Chart. So we're going to switch things up a little bit differently this year, where it comes to the aeronautical chart, and hopefully it'll improve the product and get some better information out there. Not only that, it's what I'm about to explain will decrease the turnaround time, make it a lot easier to produce, and reduce the cost also to produce the chart. So ever since I've been here working for the last 20 years, we've, if you can see the photo on the left, it'll show the 2 different types of formats. So we've always printed the aeronautical chart in wax scale format, which is, I believe, 1 to 500,000. And now that with the vendor that I'm using, which is Williams and Heinz, which is really actually the only nautical printing company, map company out there right now doing this kind of stuff. They have the access to the actual FAA sectional scale files for all of the United States. So that being said, we are going to print the chart on in sectional scale, so you can see it folds out quite a bit bigger. because you can actually see the information on it. It's in a much larger scale. As with my only complaint with our old format was that the information was there, but you pretty much needed an electron microscope to figure out where things were supposed to be. And not to mention, when it comes to the production of that product, the smaller format, that was all done using plates and manually moving and making those updates that the FAA would have made. So they would have to manually make all those updates. So with the new format, which everything is digital, we will get the most accurate information from the FAA when it comes to the sectional chart. So it does fold out a lot bigger, but it folds down a little smaller. So it's on the right there, you can see where it folds down. I guess backing up, the new format will be about 56 inches wide and about 39 inches high. And that'll cover the entire state of Colorado on one side. And then as usual on the back side, we'll continue to have the information that we've had on there. But I also have more real estate to deal with now, or to work with. So we'll probably be adding new things on there as time goes on. So we've got a lot more room to work with. When it folds down, it's just a little bit smaller than the old format that we had. It folds down to about 9 inches by about 6.5 inches wide. And, but it is a little bit thicker, but it accordions out. So you wouldn't ever want to open up the old one anyway, fully in the cockpit. So you would just accordion it out and get the same information. So as a staff, I consulted our certified pilots here in the office, and we came to a consensus that getting this type of product in the sectional scale would be a lot more, it would be better for our customers and give them better information and make it easier to find. So, and the other thing on top of that, I think we discussed this as well, is that in the past, the aeronautical chart has been a biannual product. So we do that, we reprint it every 2 years. We're just gonna go ahead and do this annually. I think that's gonna be a better way to get the most accurate information out. Actually every time I put these things to press, the next day they're not accurate anymore because things change so quickly. But so I think those are the 3 pluses, I think. So from a cost standpoint, turnaround standpoint, informational standpoint, we couldn't think of any down draws on it. So I think we're going to go with it, see what kind of reaction we get, and adjust from there. But I think it'll be a better product than we offer today. So annually, and then the airport directory, again, we'll have the 2022 coming out as well. So we'll have a lot of stuff to go to the public here as far as our chart and directory stuff. So any questions there?
Yeah, Sean, Mark, I have an in the weeds question, which is, do you print any where you don't fold? Do you have a demand for those that want to?
Yeah, I always include, I think we usually have about 100 that are not folded. But yeah, I think that's going to be a lot more popular being in sectional scale. We never really had much of a demand for the flat ones on the old format. Usually I would give them off to wings and that's usually where they would get used. But this one I think is going to be on a lot of hanger walls and all over the place. So it's going to be a lot better product.
Great. Thank you.
And Mr. Chair, I would add one more thing that this is going to be a huge benefit is for those of you that have used the aeronautical chart. On the flip side is just a whole plethora of information on everything from mountain flying and pass information to military operations areas, things like that. We intend to use this new real estate on the backside. We're going to add a new section talking about airport noise abatement and helping publish information about airports that have noise abatement recommendations, so we can help our pilots around the state be good neighbors at airports where that's a concern. So that's something new that we don't have on the chart today, but we'll be able to do that with this, again, with this extra real estate on the flip side.
Outstanding. Excellent. Nice, Sean.
We'll see how it works out. So get ready for, we'll have to have those ready to hand out to the public by our next CAOA meeting here, which is coming up February 2. Hopefully I'll have the electronic copy of the airport directory will be done as soon as I get it ready to go to the press, and that should be brought by the end of the month, and then or well before the end of the month. So the electronic copy of the directory will be ready, and all printed versions will be sometime in the middle of January.
Yeah, I really like that new format, just the size of it, and it's funny. I use the old format, to have a little class on some of our front desk, our operational people, so they understand the terrain and the flying around into Telluride, and having a like you said, need a magnifying glass to really take a look at some of those points. So this is great. Look forward to that. So let's do the airport directory update too, right?
Yeah, I basically just sandwiched all that together. So we're working on the update for that.
Okay.
On this edition, we're just updating a handful of airports that had major development in them, and then the next year we do all the airport images over again. So all updated information, and looking forward to get that out. The cover image for that one's going to be a really cool one. I was working with Daniel Malia, who has a really cool one. I don't know. It's an old polished up aluminum plane. It's beautiful. Just got restored, and he does this cool thing with a 360 cam on a boom on the. I don't know what he does, but it's an amazing photo. And then a little background on him and the airport will be inside. So that'll be pretty cool. So.
Outstanding. Always look forward to that and your fine work, Sean. Okay. Does anybody have any questions? Okay. Let's go to the next item, number 9, and that would be the Colorado Discretionary Aviation Grant for 2022. The review, and Mr. Green.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I am happy to reintroduce our grant review here. We've actually not done a grant review since December of 2013. So a lot of things have changed since then. And the reason we're bringing this back is we're back to a very, I will say, normal program that has quite a bit more complexity than we've seen these last 6 or 7 years. So kind of the main purpose of this grant review is to really get each of the board members an understanding of what the planned state and local program is that we would be requesting approval for at our upcoming meeting at CAOA on February 1st. So I'll kind of jump right into kind of what the program is. So right now, the planning team here at the division is recommending this program on the screen right here, which is 13 projects to actually 12 different airports. So as you can see, a lot of our money we have planned going to pavement projects, considering those top 3 projects are all fixing pavement around the airport. So that's really where we try to invest the most of our money to make sure that our investment at airports can go as far as possible. So I'll actually jump into all of the different projects here on the next slide. So what I'm going to do is I'll run through these kind of pretty quickly just to give you an idea what each of the projects at the airports are. And then I will be throwing it over to Scott Story to kind of give you a more in-depth understanding of a few of these projects. So, all right, so here it's the Colorado Air and Spaceports. We're looking to do a $270,000 grant for runway and taxiway pavement maintenance on the Eastern Complex here at the airport. Up at Colorado Plains Regional Airport up in Akron, we are looking to do a geotechnical investigation. And what that is for, their runway is planned for rehabilitation in 2027, but we want to get this geotechnical investigation done now to see if it's purely a mill and fill or if it's something that we need to go a little bit deeper into the subgrade. So it's just a little investigation to make sure we can plan accordingly for that 2027 project.
Imagine that Colorado soils could be that unstable. That's
shocking. Yeah, it is hard to believe. And that was actually a project we did with state funds without any federal funding last time we repaved that runway. And we were seeing a few more cracks than we were expecting. And so that's the reason we wanted to get in there a little bit early to make sure that the amount of money we have planned for the project is adequate, because the price difference between a mill and fill and a full reconstruction is quite a difference. So just planning for the future.
Yeah, excellent approach. And this also lends to your program of your PCIs and how you can tackle these issues and really save a lot of money. So that's great.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next on the list is Durango. We'll have a commercial ramp rehabilitation project for $300,000. And Scott will get a little bit more into that after this list. Glenwood Springs is another one Scott will help with, but the two projects we're doing there are airfield pavement maintenance and a Jet A fuel system. And the piece of this I'll highlight right now is this $225,000 for the Jet A fuel system. We are really handling new fuel systems or fuel system upgrades throughout the state on a 50-50 basis at this point, kind of maxed at about a $400,000 grant. So I know that has been a conversation in the past of how we should handle those, and that is kind of how we're handling them going forward at this point. So just wanted to highlight that project a little bit before Scott gets into it later. Next, at the Harriet Alexander Airport in Salida, we're doing another pavement maintenance project there for $270,000. Next is Mineral County, which is down over in Creed. And that is our really big project for the year, where we have planned $3 million going into that project. And that'll definitely be a project Scott highlights here after the list. Next, Rocky Mountain Metropolitan Airport, another large pavement maintenance program there for some pavement maintenance on runway 30 and 12 left. And then the last one on this slide is down in Silver West Airport in Westcliff, which is another pavement maintenance grant for $175,000. And then on the next page is down in Huerfano County, which is the county that has Walsenburg in it. And the reason I'm wording that awkwardly is because this project is actually not taking place at the airport. They actually reached out to us to as a conversation. They are in conversations with some EMS helicopter operators, and they have an absolute need to install a helipad actually in Gardner, Colorado, where they would be able to transfer from an ambulance to helicopter service to get some of those very emergent patients to medical care a little quicker. And so it looks like they are going to install an FAA approved helipad there in Gardner. And so we are putting up half the money to get that installed at $25,000. Next project is up in Steamboat, and the next two projects are actually federal match projects where we're just adding some overmatch funding for those projects. So Steamboat, they are rehabilitating their runway in 2022. And we as a state and the planning office is recommending an additional $400,000 of state and local overmatch, purely so we can actually take care of some pavements a little outside of the runway environment that really need fixed while they're out there working on the runway. And then down in Pagosa Springs at Stevens Field, another overmatch project to do some pavement maintenance. The FAA is doing a pretty large federal project down there for some pavement maintenance, and we are expanding on that a little bit to get a little bit more project done down there. And then the last one on this list is at the Vance Brand Municipal Airport up in Longmont, and we are looking to do $54,000 of airfield pavement maintenance up there in Longmont. So of all these airports, as you can see on the bottom of this slide, we are looking for about just over $5.5 million of state funding. And then with the associated local match of $834,000, we're looking to do a full state and local program of almost $6.35 million. And so I know Bryce and Dave talked a little bit about increasing our amount this year from $8 million to $9 million. Keep in mind that this grant review is purely for our state and local grants. We are also expecting right about $3 million of federal matching grants coming up at the April meeting. And so in total, Bryce is letting us go up to that $9 million amount, but we are really expecting to stay right in about $8.5 million, just to kind of keep a buffer in there for the unknown of COVID variants, and just to make sure if any other emergencies come down the list. So I would be happy to answer any questions at this point, or I can throw it over to Scott and he can kind of get into a few of these projects specifically.
Hey, Todd, it's Mark. I just have one kind of general question. Can you define or describe pavement maintenance? Is it project by project and unique, or is there a constant theme there for the kind of work that's being done for that money?
So overall, what we consider pavement maintenance really is doing a full crack seal of the airfield pavements. And then on top of that, it's usually some sort of surface treatment, which could be a fog seal, which is applying a product similar to like a GSB 88 product, just to kind of get that surface back to kind of what it was when it was originally put down. Or it could also include a slurry seal, which is that same product, but added some aggregate in there to get a new wearing surface.
Okay.
And then usually after those two process, there's usually a repainting of those airfield surfaces as well. And so really anytime you see those pavement maintenance projects in here, that is what it's referencing. Anytime you see a rehabilitation or a reconstruction, that is really where we're digging out the pavement. So a rehabilitation usually has to do with a mill and fill, where we're milling out maybe 2, 4, or 6 inches of that asphalt and re-putting down a new mat of asphalt on top of that. And then the full reconstruction is taking out all of the layers of asphalt and then usually working the subsoils a little bit to get a new base set up before you're actually adding the asphalt back in. So those are kind of the 3 subsets of grants we do, is that reconstruction, rehabilitation, and then pavement maintenance.
Great, that's really helpful. Thank you very much.
Or Todd, all you had to say is, because I think Mark believed this, is that you're just expecting a visit from Mark, because I told him that we had done our pavement maintenance for when he flew in.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, your airport looked very nice when we were over there. I will agree.
That's
I think
right.
it was like the 3rd or 4th airplane to land on it. It was
Yeah, exactly.
about rolling out the red carpet. He rolled out the black carpet for
There
me.
you go.
So, and to get a little bit more of those as well. So a pavement maintenance grant, we usually hope that that'll get the airport between 4 and 5 years of time frame before we'll need to do another one. Usually when we do a mill and fill, we're hoping to get between 10 and 15 years out of that new pavement. And then a reconstruction, again, the hope is to get around 20 years out of those pavements. So those much cheaper pavement maintenance grants are to try to extend those time between rehabilitations and reconstruction. So we spend a lot of money on pavement maintenance.
Well said. Well presented, Todd. Any other members have any questions?
Okay, well, I will throw it over to Scott. He will actually get into a few of these projects and give you a little bit more information about them specifically.
Sounds good.
Yeah, thanks, Todd. Yes, I think first I'm gonna give you a little more background on the proposed grant for Creed Mineral County Airport. So this is a project, well, I guess to back up, this airport is actually one of our 17 non-NIPIAS airports in the state. So that means they don't receive any federal funding. So they are one of those 17 that pretty much relies on our programs for major capital improvements, such as runways. It's been quite a few years since we've funded one of these solely. I couldn't even tell you when the last one was because of all of our financial troubles and now the COVID delays. But this is one that we've had planned for years and was originally scheduled to be funded in 21. So it would have been completed upon the original plan, but that we pushed that back to 23 with the onset of the result of the pandemic on our funding. And we actually found out just this summer that CDOT actually is planning a major asphalt project on Highway 149 near Creed. And so we would been evaluating the ability to pull this back up to a 22 project to coincide with that CDOT project, hoping we could get some cost efficiencies. So we're happy and hopeful that that will work in our favor as this goes out to bid, if approved by the board next spring. So we actually also issued a grant in 2019 of $200,000, which funded the design for this reconstruction. So that has already been completed. And as I just mentioned, it will be a full reconstruction, milling out the existing surface, doing some subgrade work, and then putting down a new 3-inch asphalt mat. We're also hopeful that if there's enough funding and good bid prices, that they might be able to extend some work into the one small connector and apron they have, which could use help too, but it's not the priority. As long as we could get the runway done, we'll be happy with that. So that's about all I had for you on that Creed project, but I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have now prior to bringing it to you for approval in February.
I don't see any. Let's move on to Durango.
Sure. And so these next two projects, Durango and Glenwood Springs, we're highlighting just because these are kind of very new from a planning perspective that we've added to this round of grant requests. Typically, obviously, we have projects planned years in advance in our capital improvement plans that we work with airports on. This is one that the next two projects are ones that we just added within the last few months due to kind of emergency situations. In this case, it's a very priority piece of pavement concerning the main connector from the taxiway to the commercial apron for the Durango terminal. And it has just unexpectedly fallen apart very quickly. And that's why actually I have the airport manager, Tony Vicari, on with us. He's be happy, I believe, to give you a little update on the situation that we hope to address with this grant request.
Can you have Scott or Sean, can you put the cursor around that area of the commercial ramp on that photo?
And good afternoon. This is Tony Vicari, the airport director at the Durango La Plata County Airport. And thank you for the time and letting me jump on here. And so just to provide a little bit of backdrop on this, the piece of pavement we're talking about is indeed the primary access point to the commercial apron here at Durango from our primary taxiway Alpha. This is the primary access point for all commercial activity at the airport, including American, United, and Frontier Airlines on a daily basis. The pavement that we've had here, or do have rather, on the eastern half of the commercial apron as an asphalt section that was most recently addressed in 2020 as partially federal and state project. However, the additional keel section of this apron and then ultimately leading out onto taxiway Alpha is very unexpectedly experienced some severe rutting and alligator cracking issues within the last 6 to 9 months after previously being a solid piece of pavement for us dating back to previous state PCI inspections. And so, as Scott well outlined there, this is really a surprise project for us. So we jumped on an early scoping and design project with our engineering firm to begin to pull this project together, working with the state and FAA to identify where this could potentially fit into our capital program. It was something that we were contemplating in terms of trying to fund locally and figuring out what projects we would have to pull out of our existing CIP to manage that investment on such a short notice to address the priority piece of pavement. And through those discussions, it was really very much a kudos to the state aeronautics team in terms of collaboratively bringing this potential opportunity for us to look at a state local grant to fund the priority project, knowing that the airport has a significant amount of funds tied up in a number of projects, including significant matches on Plan 2022 runway rehabilitation under the AIP program, as well as a major taxiway reconstruction with about $1 million in local match between the two projects. So the ability for the state to potentially step in and provide some support for this surprise project would be a huge lift to us in terms of defraying those surprise costs on our capital improvement program. So again, I just throw out my major kudos to the state team in terms of being on top of this, immediately identifying through their summer visit on their PCI inspection route, the critical nature or critical condition rather of that asphalt section, and working with us to really figure out solutions on this. And we feel like we have a good process here, that this is a proposed mill and overlay project to address these areas to extend the useful life of the pavement moving forward.
Yeah, that's fun, Tony.
Yeah, emergency projects are always a challenge. And so it's those type of projects that really put that emphasis on having great relationships and amazing state support in many ways. Working with the federal program on the EIP side is, of course, a fantastic asset to airports around the state and nation, but the flexibility and nimbleness of the state to be able to react to some surprising conditions like that and come up with options to help support the local efforts really, in my opinion, speaks in tremendously to the value of a state aeronautics organization, from big projects such as this down to the internship grant that was referenced earlier. Some of these ways it can really make a very tactile difference at airports across the state. And certainly we're thankful to be considered for those type of opportunities from small to big, such as this.
Excellent. Well outlined. Nice. Thanks, Tony. Anybody have any other questions for Tony Vicari? Okay. Well, all right, Tony. We'll chew on that one, and hopefully we can get taken care of when we vote on it next year.
Well, we appreciate the consideration and look forward to seeing everyone at CAOA.
You bet. Okay, next one, Glenwood Springs.
Yeah, thanks again, Mr. Chairman, and thanks, Tony. So similar to, well, this is kind of a split conversation here. The pavement maintenance you see there for $135,000 has been planned for years, and that's really going to be the first pavement maintenance that we've done on the runway at Glenwood since we helped fund its rehabilitation back in 2014. So that's going to be very helpful to extending the life of those pavements. But the Jet A fuel system, similar to the previous discussion, was a new opportunity that came up very recently that the state would like to support. I've got Meredith Fox on here with us to give you a little info as well, but generally speaking, they have a real safety issue with the current way they store and distribute their Jet A system, and they've actually had to suspend selling Jet A fuel at the airport, and that has affected the ability of the local medevac operator to operate and refuel there. So we thought that this would be a great opportunity to help them get out of a safety concern, as well as the large impact of the local operators there. And also, you know, help show the Glenwood Springs community that they're not on their own when they have challenges like this. And so I would go ahead and hand it over to Meredith, maybe to give you a little more info on that.
Hi everybody, I'm Meredith, Glenwood Springs Airport Manager. Just started in August, and I walked into a lot of work. So I'm here to help as much as I can, and thanks to Scott for helping and working with me. Yes, our fuel farm is very unique and interesting. It is a 500-gallon tank on a wooden trailer that is owned by somebody else, but it's on our property. And that is not acceptable. It is not the safest mechanism either to have to fuel helicopters. And I want to be able to fuel everyone safely. And thank goodness last month, City Council unanimously approved a new fuel farm. So I'm really excited about that. We did put it out to bid today, or yesterday, I should say yesterday went out to bid. So we are looking to put in a brand new Jet A and 100 low lead tank system with lighting. Classic Medical Air is operated there. They are based there. They operate 24/7. And we need to be able to let them get fuel when they need it. There's a lot of scenarios depending on how much fuel they need and how much weight they have, depending on where they have to go all the time. So they're always worrying about if we have enough fuel. With 500-gallon tank, I'm fueling weekly, trying to make sure that they have the fuel that they need. And then we are looking to move it to the south end of the runway towards 32, so that the noise abatement doesn't affect the neighborhoods on the north end side. We have Denver Medical VAC come in all the time too, and it seems like they rotate pilots quite frequently, and they never can find our fuel farm because we don't have any lights on it. So they are at 2 o'clock in the morning with their spotlight on the north end of the field looking for the fuel farm. So we want to address that as well. And then also with our taxiways, they are so narrow, and we have a goat head infested problem that is causing some issues with tires going flat. So we want to widen, especially our entrance into the runways, so that the aircraft's tires and their mains can stay on pavement getting into the runway. So with the help of Scott and getting this emergency into your guys' system, that is just really appreciative and looking forward to working with you guys in the future.
Excellent, Meredith. Yeah, those are some good challenges. And I think the state and we appreciate the fact that you're willing to step up, that the city is willing to step up with a substantial match for your Jet A system.
Yeah,
So,
50-50, yeah.
good job. Nice sales job to the town. So that's great.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Just a quick question, Meredith, Mark Mantine. Do you have any fixed wing turbine aircraft that's based there? And do you get any transient aircraft?
We get a lot of transient. I just had a Pilatus land and stay for the weekend, a Pilatus 12, PC-12. So that was really impressive to see that they land and stop really quickly. But, you know, they take on at least 450 gallons of fuel in one sitting. So it'd be really nice to be able to fuel them when they need fuel, more than just one aircraft at a time.
Right.
What size tank are you looking at? I'm sorry.
12,000 gallons.
12,000. That's perfect. Well,
Yep.
good. Get you through.
Sorry, you muted there.
That'll get you through at least a week.
A week, yes, thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Meredith. And yeah, I think this is a great case. And with the support of, with all the work Scott has been working with you, we'll vote on this on February, okay?
All right, appreciate it, everyone. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your time. All right.
So, Mr. Chairman, thanks, Scott, for doing those updates there too. So at this point, being a review, again, this is really here for each of the board members that if they have questions about any of those projects, I'd be happy to answer questions about any of them. Or if everyone is okay with the projects at this point, we will clean up each of the individual grant applications and have them ready for consideration at the February 1st, 2022 board meeting.
I think you can, given the questions and the presentations, I think you can go ahead and take those next steps for review and approval.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
This was really helpful, Todd. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Nice job. Okay, anything else, Todd, that you'd like to hit us with? Okay, let's move to item number 10. This is an action item, so this would be the fiscal year 2022 out-of-state division out-of-state travel plan update. Director Elaine.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Just by way of review, at the beginning part of each year, staff develops a staff professional development plan and related out-of-state travel plan for the subsequent fiscal year, and that includes all the costs associated with planned trips outside the state of Colorado. In April of this year, you all adopted our current 22 out-of-state travel plan totaling $16,150. Since that time, however, though, some of the events that were originally contemplated on that plan have either been canceled or modified. So we're bringing back to you an updated professional development and out-of-state travel plan for your consideration that now has a total cost estimate of $14,500, reduction of $1,650 from the originally approved plan. On the sheet that you have in your packet, the additions are in red, the deletions have strike-throughs, and we've added for all of your benefit a new column with hyperlinks to the event websites if one exists. So just a couple of things that changed on this year's plan. We are deleting the 2022 FAA's Northwest Mountain Region Airports Conference, which the FAA has decided not to hold in 2022, much to broad disappointment across the 7 states that make up the FAA's Northwest Mountain Region. So that's unfortunate. That's a great opportunity that we've usually sent all of our planning staff to learn the latest about what's going on with FAA and the airport's office there. But again, that's not going to be held. And then relatedly, sort of along those lines, the 2022 National Association of State Aviation Officials, or NASAO, the Washington, D.C. legislative conference that will be held at the end of February this year, will be in a no-cost virtual event rather than an in-person function like it had been a couple of years ago. So we've deleted those. But since April of 21, we also adopted a new strategic plan, which had an entire goal focused around professional development and those kinds of things for our staff to make sure we're all up to speed and able to jobs as effectively as we can. So with those deletions, we've added a couple of other things. One would be participation at the American Association of Airport Executives, or AAAE, the annual Airport Planning and Construction Symposium. A couple of years ago, that was held here in Denver, which gave us a great opportunity to go to that. But we think that is a great substitute for the information that would have come from the FAA conference. So we've added that into the mix for this year. The other one that we've added that is new is attendance for our new outreach coordinator and Caitlin to go to the 2022 Montana Aviation Conference. You might want to go, well, why would we want to go to the Montana Aviation Conference? Again, I go back to our strategic plan that you all adopted in August. That included looking at putting together a statewide aviation conference here in Colorado. For the last 30 years, Montana has done one of those and done it very well. And my counterpart in Montana has said that he would be very happy to have our team go up there and learn how they do it and see if we can some of the lessons back here. So I would like to send a couple of our staff up to Montana in February of next year to attend that and bring back some things that might help us look at how we do that here in Colorado. A couple of other things that we've added, I have to put in no cost trainings as part of CDOT's protocols. So there is an executive board training and development course that's been added as part of my role as the vice chair on the NASAO executive committee. That is covered completely by NASAO, so no cost to the division for that. And then lastly would be participation for me in the 2022 AAAE annual conference, which will be up in Seattle. That would be in lieu of me going to the FAA Regional Airports Conference up there. So that's the changes, Mr. Chair. I would note that in a typical year, and I use the word typical, our out-of-state travel and professional development budget is between $25,000 and $30,000. This year it was less because we hosted the NASAO conference here in Colorado. Next year, the NASAO annual conference will be in Greenville, South Carolina. So in 2023, you'll see probably a proposed budget along those lines so that we can attend that. And of course, we didn't have a NASAO conference at all in person last year. It was done all virtual. So we'll see how that goes. But in the end, Mr. Chair, we're recommending a motion by the board to approve our updated 2022 professional development and out-of-state travel plan totaling $14,500.
Okay, excellent, Dave. Do any members have any questions related to the proposed travel? Okay. I'll entertain a motion to approve the out-of-state travel plan for the Division of Aeronautics for fiscal year 2022.
So moved.
So moved.
Okay, so moved by Chaz and then seconded. Mark?
Second.
Yep.
And discussion. All those in favor say aye.
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 Okay. Looks like you got your travel plan. Let's move on to the next item, which is the industry updates. And I guess we're fortunate enough to have our guest from the new Renewable Energy Lab, NRAIL, Mr. Scott Carey.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. It's my privilege to introduce Scott. I've been having a number of conversations with Scott lately. We are working very hard on our airport electrification study scope of work that you all funded. I'm in the process of working through CDOT's procurement team to hopefully come up with a contract where we work directly with NRAIL on this to help us with that. They've got some skills and expertise that are just incredible that the private sector to a large degree does not necessarily have access to. So we're excited to visit with them about that, but I wanted to give you all an introduction to Scott and to talk a little bit about what his role is with NRAIL and what NRAIL is doing with the future of electrified aviation and other alternatively powered aircraft across the country. So Scott, I will turn it over to you, and I think you've got some slides to share if I'm not mistaken.
I do. Let's do just an audio check, make sure that's there. You hear me okay?
We got you.
Okay. Thanks, Kenny. And let's work in this platform for today and see if this is large enough for people to see.
Oh, we got you.
Okay. So my name is Scott Carey. I lead up the Ports and Airports program out at NREL, the National Renewable Energy Lab. I know many of you from previous lives doing consulting out of Colorado on infrastructure for a long time. I came to the lab about 2.5 years ago. And what my role really is I have all these amazing, brilliant people doing amazing work on new technologies at the lab. They don't necessarily completely work on airports most of the time, but all the technologies do. And so where I come in is I integrate all those items and bring those together on airports. We currently take care of about, I think we're at around 5 large hub airports that we do significant amounts of energy-related and transportation-related work. And I'm going to go through kind of a quick summary for y'all of some things going on. So get the slides to start moving. There we go. They're starting to move. Okay. So NREL, our main campus is right out on in South Golden. You see it off I-70 as you come down Mount Vernon Canyon. We have roughly 3,000 people there, along with research facilities, both in the buildings and then on the adjacent hillsides, and then also up in Boulder, the wind turbines you see as you go up into Boulder. That is the Flatirons campus of NREL, where we can do up to 20 megawatt level testing. So basically up to a substation level testing of systems for like a reasonably sized city we can do up there with different systems. And where the lab really comes into play is that we're one of 17 national laboratories, and our primary focus is on renewable energy sources and sustainable transportation, and all those systems interact. We've been in So what's different between us and what consulting generally does? This was a question I had because I was a consultant as well. And really what's happening is that you'll see all these amazing breakthroughs that occur at a university. They come up with a new way to make a new battery, or come up with a new technology that changes how you do concrete. Well, that first breakthrough, there could be a significant amount of time from the time that technology is possible until it can actually be made to use actually at an airport or at a facility. And there's time that is necessary to scale that and make it cost effective, make it safe. That's really where the national lab system comes into play, is we bridge that gap between that initial find, in some cases, that foundational research, and then when it can actually be put into place. So you don't want to have something that is untested show up in your facilities. That's where we come into play, is to help bridge that gap between those two systems. Key thing, we look at technologies, we look at consumption, we look at cost, changes and adaptations that are needed for new systems, especially in the electrical grid. We're working on a 120-year-old system that has not really had significant upgrades, and it needs some significant revisions to be able to adjust for the change in how those are coming and how they're being adapted. And now you come into transportation and look at the different networks going around the world. The red in this is air traffic. Green are your roads, and then your shipping routes. Aviation comes in at roughly 4th in terms of energy consumption amongst transportation. But it has a fairly high impact in terms of how it's moving around the world, because some of the easier areas have already been answered. There's solutions. It takes time to potentially come up with different ways to make those more efficient, or electrify, or other choices. We're also keeping track of some things going on around the world in terms of, we call them transportation megatrends. The reason we do that is we're not planning for today. We're trying to plan for 15 or 20 years from now. And the way people choose to do their mode shift, or choose Uber instead of driving a car, or say they're going to use Uber Elevate, or which is now Joby, to potentially take some of their routes. those types of trends are based on the demographics in different communities and how people have chosen to live, and where they choose to work, how they choose to travel. Those types of systems are where some of our transportation planners play. Or higher energy density batteries, chemical testing, validation for industry on hydrogen fuel cell technologies. I'm amazed every day what I get the people I get to work with, just put it that way. So when we come to airports, what we are seeing right now, and this is part of a presentation we did with Airports Going Green recently, is there is now a big focus on airports are trying to push to become carbon neutral on their emissions, the emissions that they control on the ground, and then any emissions that they might create by taking energy onto their airport. Those are scope 1 and scope 2 greenhouse gas emissions. And so you spend time on efficiency, ground fleet improvements, resiliency. If you get rid of different power sources, then how are you going to make sure you can keep operating? You lose some of that redundancy. And then there's some newer technology you're starting to put in place where you take a building, and instead of just asking for your energy when you'd like it, you ask for the energy when it's the easiest to obtain. So you lower your cost. So an example would be if you have an opportunity, you can say it's going to be hot in the afternoon. This could be as simple as a Nest thermostat. It's going to be hot in the afternoon. Rather than ask for that when everybody else is going to ask, say at 3 p.m., you ask to start cooling down your house and cool it slightly more than you would otherwise, say at 1 p.m. Just those minor shifts can extend the life of the infrastructure as a whole and save cost, both for you and for utilities and others. Those types of things are underway and getting further and further into place. We really are, at this point, are saying, okay, what's next? It's really emissions from aircraft, scope 3 emissions. The sample hub emission profile on the right here is a large hub airport that has been extremely successful at lowering their emissions on the ground. 91% of their emissions are from aircraft ops, so the airlines themselves. And when you look at what the airlines have said they want to do in terms of their goals, they're going to need some help getting there, whether that's regardless of what type of fuel it is. First question that always comes up, well, if you're going to get rid of fuel out of aircraft, it's impossible, or the next question is it's only biofuels, or it's only hydrogen, or it's only electric. The graphic that's up here is a study put out by ATAG that said it's not really one choice to get to these solutions that the airlines want to get to. It's really a combination between liquid fuels, because they're really great at energy density, and then also looking at electric for short flights, and potentially hydrogen for kind of medium distance flights up to about 1,000 miles. And as you kind of start to look through that, then you're saying in the US, there's a program that just was announced called the SAF Grand Challenge. They're looking to be able to generate 35 billion gallons of SAF by 2050. That is almost double the current consumption rate in the US, roughly 20 billion in 2020. So trying to keep up with the full demand of the system is where they're trying to push this, and they have to do it through different ways and different feedstocks. There's versions that you can take, the typical biodiesel you hear, French fry oil, fats, oils, and greases. But then there are other methods that you go through with alcohols. You go through methanol. You go through crops, biomass essentially. And it's going to need all of those different methods to be scaled and cost effective to be able to actually meet those goals. And there's DOE is putting a significant amount of money into trying to help those industries become viable and get pilot plans in place. Next one that might be a little more near and dear to Colorado is we did a small case study this last year called on electrification of essential air service routes. We looked at 4 routes out of Denver that at the time Boutique Air was flying with Plata PC-12s, I believe on a 9-seat aircraft. In this case, if you take the graphic here is showing the squiggly lines are the transmission lines that move through the state of Colorado, Nebraska, and a little bit into the corner down at the bottom into New Mexico. The bottom left corner is Cortez. Next over is Alamosa. You get up to Den in the middle of the graphic, and you've got McCook and Chatham, Nebraska up in the other corners. We looked at this to start the discussion with some of the research groups to say, is there a market for electric aircraft? As we look at that, first thing we have to ask is there electricity where these places are? And we looked at that by starting with just the transmission systems through the US. It's something that the lab has a unique capability to have access to all that information. And then we actually can chase that in many cases deeper into their systems through all the relationships with the utilities. But what you start to look at is how far back up the chain do you have to go to get the amount of energy you'd like to use? Can you do it just from within your distribution feeders? Or do you have to chase it back to a substation? How far away is the substation from your location? And then how reliable is that service? And it gets into a discussion at some point, is it more cost effective, potentially even generate your own energy on site and store that and use it for your transportation purposes? A lot of thanks to Dave and his team. He helped us update the subsidies listings here, 2019 to 2022. Each of these locations are getting somewhere between $2.5 and $3.5 million a year in subsidies, between 1,200 and 6,000 emplanements. Now, it's critical for these communities to have, for their economies to have air service. It's coming at a significant cost. So can we figure out a way to make that more cost effective? We took a look at those Pilatus PC-12s and the distances, the emissions. Oh, this one doesn't have something I needed there. The distances, the emissions, and the costs. When we look at fuel costs versus electricity costs, going with, we didn't go with wholesale rates, we went with published rates for fuel. And what we found was it's, even if we went with that element directly, it's 1/10 the cost to go with electricity for the same route. That doesn't get into the question of maintenance and other items that go with that aircraft. If you're concerned about emissions, if you can, even if you went from Jet A to a full coal mix, you're still reducing emissions on that flight. And if you could go to a renewable source, you're essentially getting rid of those emissions off every one of those routes. What this really did for us was sort of set the stage and say to different organizations that there are existing high subsidies in place that could be great opportunities to start using some of these newer technologies. An area that we see there's some concern is when you go into the large hubs, when you go into the hub locations, you're trying to hit those banks. You could see some charging requests coming in if they're not thought through well, larger than many of the airports in the state of Colorado each would have on a typical day. So a 4 megawatt request between 7 and 9 in the morning, peak request would be coming into Denver. A large central utility plant like Denver has is probably at 15 to 16 megawatts of load when it's really moving on heat. So it'd be a quarter of the entire heating load. Today is because you're trying to replace it with electrons instead. These things are doable. They're you can mitigate these methods, but it's a step up from what you deal with light duty vehicles. Some other things going on. Hydrogen is also getting a lot more interest. There's a massive amount of, I believe it was $8 billion put into hydrogen hubs as part of this last congressional bill. Hydrogen has been humming along in research for many, many years, and it ebbs and flows, and this year is a very large year for hydrogen. One of the items they're trying to do is they're looking at different fuel sources and different methods of how hydrogen can fit into aviation. And now this is from the Hydrogen Fuel Cells Technology Office, and in coordination with Boeing and others, the discussion is we see this the transportation locations as transportation nodes, and you go between light duty vehicles to trucks to ground equipment to aircraft. Their ideal situation is that you figure out a way to make and potentially store hydrogen nearby, and then distribute that hydrogen out to all those different types of vehicles. A key component, if you want to make that locally, is electricity and water, and that will generally, that is where that's going. Right now, the cost is way up. So with that, they're now, in addition to similar to what happened with solar in previous decades, there's now a big initiative in the United States to push to try and get the cost of hydrogen down to $1 per kilogram in the next decade. Right now, that's running roughly $5 a kilogram. This is a great product for kind of that up to about 1,000 miles on aircraft, and would run most likely through a hydrogen fuel cell. So you convert it to electricity and then run turboprops. Airbus, Universal Hydrogen, ZeroAvia, Cranfield, Alaska Airlines is partnered with ZeroAvia on this technology. And then there are multiple European countries that are trying to use this for ion hopping very soon. This is gaining interest. Another place just to think about is you can also use hydrogen as a kind of as energy storage. So when you have excess electricity, you make hydrogen, store it in a tank, and when you need it, you run it back through your hydrogen fuel cell, and you have electricity locally to where you need it. It can be used similar to essentially to a generator. Right now, it isn't cost effective to use it that way, but for grid level kind of stabilization, it's becoming more realistic. It's being looked at for large seaports, et cetera. Quick thing is there are a lot of different organizations working on solutions to help these manufacturers, airports, states on these new technologies coming online. This is a short list that we have interacted with ICAO down to the state level, and also directly with manufacturers that have asked for assistance with different elements of these systems. There is significant interest both from the FAA on sustainable aviation fuel, electrification, and hydrogen. We've been working, the Air Force has been trying to help speed up electric vertical takeoff and landing aircraft, which are being targeted by some of the cargo companies to do the spoke deliveries right now. And then Department of Energy, it basically looks at the entire system, anything to do with energy, and has been doing this for many years on transportation and is transitioning that to aviation as well. These are just a few of the groups that are there. And then we wanted to just pass on, and Dave, I can send this to you, a short list of some resources that we've been handing out and things that we found helpful from NASA's Regional Air Mobility Study, which we're assisting with on looking at the energy needs there, to WSDOT's electrification work, and then into discussions on SAF delivery, incentive calculations that may be necessary if people are trying to incentivize SAF currently, new chargers, all kinds of things. So just a short version of what's going on. Dave, was there something else you were looking for today, or is this what you're looking for?
That was perfect, Scott. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Well,
Any
very
questions?
nice, Scott. Can you help clarify for me? I went to NBAA and the FAA administrator spoke and talked about how today I think we're producing manufacturing. God, I forgot how much it was. It was like 2.5 million gallons of SAF. And the goal, and I don't know if it was a 10-year goal, is 3 billion within 10 years. Is that right?
That sounds right. Yeah.
Okay. So what's really great is you have the stars aligning where you have the FAA, the business aviation community, and the airline community are very much championing SAF. So, you know, as far as us as an organization with the state of Colorado and conversations I'm sure Dave is having, that maybe there is, what we have to figure out is what role or what incentives can the state of Colorado or we as a division can assist in, you know, ideally, ultimately manufacturing SAF in Colorado. So
what are you thinking? Do you want to comment on that, or what were you thinking there, Kenny?
no, I'm just like, am I off? Is there anything about what I've said that's off? I mean, as far as a strategy, it's what we're trying to work.
No, I don't.
What our
I don't-
role or how we can support it in a constructive.
I've got it. Excuse me.
Was that your son?
He just got home from school. No,
Oh, okay.
no, that's my other son. Yeah.
Okay.
The key thing is there's, at least right now, there's 7 different methods that are approved to make sustainable aviation fuel that come from different feedstocks.
Right.
And so like the easy ones right now currently are places where you get fats, oils, and greases. And you want to be near a pipeline. You put those
Right.
2 things together and you're a great location. So in Colorado, we need to look to say, what is the feedstock that goes into that system on traditional biofuels, and then find the right partner to make it, and then the company to offtake. What has been successful for Alder and Alder working with United Airlines and Southwest working with another group, these different groups that are starting to scale, is to get an offtake agreement from the airline, which then allows the manufacturer to go get capital to put in the system. That's the key element there.
Yeah.
We have one thing we do have. It's in this link, and I don't think I included in this one. I'll send it over to Dave. Is about 6 months ago, we were asked to do an economic analysis for one of the federal agencies on what would be a reasonable tax credit to incentivize going from Jet A to biofuels, because there's capacity already there for diesel, biodiesel, and others. And right now it's, hey, I can make more money doing these other things. So why would I make biofuels for some of the existing locations? So I can send that incentive information over just as it was intended as guidance to say, this would put it on parity with some of the other fuels right now while it's scaling.
Yeah, and I think the best part about SAF is that there's no need for infrastructure. The infrastructure is already in place, and that's what makes it so appealing, and that's what makes it exciting that everybody's getting on board. So anyway, thank you so much, Scott, for the detailed, excellent presentation. Does anybody else have any questions? Mark?
Yep, I have just one question, Scott. Again, it is a great presentation and a good summary. I'd very much like to get a copy of this slide if we could. But there was one statistic on slide 10 that confused me a little bit. The public is very very aware and a little bit sensitive to greenhouse gas emissions. And so thank you for going back to the slide. So you show 9% of global emissions coming from aviation, and everything I've seen is greenhouse gases from aviation are from 1.9 to 2.3.
Yeah.
Am I missing something there? Why is that number so high on this slide?
I can check this. Let me get my source to make sure. This was either US emissions or global emissions from the entire sector.
Would
But
that
I'll
also
confirm for
include
you.
the support vehicles and buses and everything else too?
Everything related to the sector.
Okay.
So everything that's required to move.
Maybe that's
vehicles.
what that is there's all the
Yeah.
transportation that.
Yeah, because everything you'll see from IATA and and other sources will say, the latest I saw, 1.9% comes from aviation. Now, I don't think that's all encompassing of what happens on the ground. It's aircraft, and of course the industry is paying real close attention to that. And we have a lot of challenges, besides the SAF production, in the U.S. In particular. But in other countries too, getting away from leaded fuel for avgas is a huge deal, and it's a long path to get there. So anyway, this was a great presentation. I appreciate this.
And I'll send over that source that we have. I've seen a range as well, so we had to pick one.
Yeah, I just haven't seen anything. I haven't seen anything that significant. 9% is pretty significant.
No worries. I'll find it for you.
Anyway, just curious about that. Thanks again. It was a great presentation.
Anyone else have any questions?
Mr.
Okay.
Chair, this is Mr. Ulane. I think it's pretty clear why we're interested in talking more with NREL about doing this analysis for us that you've already funded. Again, they've got the expertise in the background, and Scott and I are already having conversations with some folks with NASA about how we can bring their expertise on regional air mobility into our study. And again, as I've talked about before, finding ways to get more work done than just we would get for our $200,000 budget otherwise. So my plan is that I hope to have a much more detailed path forward and a scope of work for you all to look at the February 1st CAB meeting. We're going to be talking about that a lot over the next couple of months.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you. Well, let's go on to the next industry update. I believe Mr. Green wants to talk about the Colorado Airport Operators Association training grant update. Take it away, Todd.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the board. I will keep this pretty quick. I just have to find my notes associated with it. So back in 2021, we issued CAOA a grant to host a statewide airport staff training seminar. And so we actually hosted that here somewhat recently. It was about 4 months ago, I believe. And what that training accounted for was pavement maintenance training. So just what I was talking about here earlier with the grant review, how much money we're spending on pavement maintenance. That training was specifically teaching the airport staff members how to do each of those things on their own. So they're able to get like $10,000 from the state on an annual basis to do crack fill. And so one of the aspects of that was how to actually do crack fill correctly. And so we had given that grant to CAOA totaling $30,000 of state funds. And at that time, we thought that single training would actually take up most of those funds. But what we didn't expect was most of the vendors that showed up for that training actually provided all of the material and their time for free. And so that the cost of that training actually came down very considerably. And we ended up only having to spend about $6,000 for that. So the kind of cool thing about that is now we have about $24,000 remaining in that grant. And CAO has reached out and asked if they could host another training. And they are looking to host a pavement markings training for airport staff around the state as well. And so we have opened up the remaining portion of that grant to really get some more good training out to our airport staff members. So really, it was just an update on that change with that grant, but I'd be open to any questions the board may have.
Nice work coordinating. Anyone have any questions? Seeing none. Thank you, Todd. And nice work. Let's go ahead and move on to program updates. We have a remote tower, the Honorable Mr. William E. Payne.
Hey, Bill, I still show you on mute.
Why did you have to say something, Todd?
I think I can unmute him, but I don't know if any of us want that.
You do. I just unmuted myself. There you go. I was talking away and realized I was muted, which probably would be helpful. So I'm going to go through this fairly quickly. As you've probably seen in my reports, we're scheduled to start our phase 1 testing beginning the 8th of January, or excuse me, the 18th of January, and we'll do phase 1 testing in 2 phases. Now, so far the FAA is holding strong to that date, so I feel comfortable that we'll be able to do it, as AJT, Air Traffic and Air Safety, have already committed resources to come out here. So I'm holding my breath, hoping that that'll get done. Now, as you know, we have been having to put off our phase 1 testing because of COVID, and because the FAA people are not able to travel. Although our program manager is still in Mexico and won't be back until probably the end of this week. But last week I was up at Fort Collins. We're doing some familiarization testing with the controllers. I sat through 2 sections of that, and just to get them ready for the phase 1 testing when we start, so they'll be all up to speed and ready to go. Also, I accumulated a list of system squawks, which I sent to the vendor, and who's going to correct those prior to the beginning of the phase 1 testing. Also, I met with a couple of pilots that are going to fly some of the scenarios during phase 1. Met with the chief pilot for the hospital, and also with a local pilot that is a member of our corporate flight group that's going to fly his aircraft. Also, during the meeting, I've had numerous conversations with local pilots there who are trying to get radar in the mobile tower, and I've been able to explain to them how we've tried to do that and have been unable to do it. So hopefully we can move briskly through phase 1 testing and get into phase 2 testing. That's when we get our STARS radar display, certified radar display. So that's pretty much it from my end. If there are any questions, I'll be glad to address those.
Well done.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Payne. I appreciate your time, and keep it up.
No
Let's
problem.
get her done.
All right.
Well, thank you. So let's go on to the next item, which is legislative issues. Director Elaine, you have an update for us?
I really don't have anything specific for you today, Mr. Chair. I think the biggest thing that I would bring up for you is that on December 14th next week, I'm scheduled to give a presentation to the legislature's Capital Development Committee relative to a funding proposal that we submitted. This would have been back in July, for the potential development of 3 new AWOS units in the state, one at the Creed Mineral County Airport, and then 2 new, I'm using the air quotes, mountain AWOS units that our division would own, one that would be located out on the Eastern Plains along the I-76 corridor, and one that would be located on the I-70 corridor out to the east. And again, as a refresher, during our 2020 system plan update, we heard regarding weather reporting, we heard from a lot of our helicopter EMS operators that there really is a lack of good aviation weather information along those 2 corridors because the airports are kind of few and far between out there. So this was a funding proposal that met some of the criteria for CDC committee funding. We submitted a request, made the first cut, and I get to give my presentation to that group next week. So keeping my fingers crossed that that may work. The total funding request would have been $450,000 of funding from the Capital Development Committee's pot of money, $275,000 from our AWAS statewide initiative, and then the Creed Mineral County AWAS would have a $25,000 local contribution. So I will be sure to let you all know how that goes next Tuesday. And that's really the only legislative item that I have, Mr. Chair.
I like it. Excellent. Nice work. Okay, let's go to item number 14, proposed calendar. Want to run through those
You bet,
dates?
Mr. Chair. Since our last meeting, the folks at CAOA have set their winter legislative conference that will be held Monday, February 2nd and a half day on Tuesday, Monday, February 1st and a half day on Tuesday, February 2nd. That will be at the Sheraton Denver downtown. So we're excited about that. As we've always done, our CAB meeting will be held in conjunction with that. That will be on Tuesday the 1st at 10 a.m. also at the Sheraton, barring any major change in COVID protocol or anything like that. We're planning on participating there. Our next meeting would be Wednesday, April 13th here at our offices in Watkins. That's notable because that will be our grant hearing for our FAA matching grants like it always is in April. So with that, Mr. Chair, what I would like to do is I would like to run through very quickly a couple of protocol items that have come down from the governor's office on board meetings. Sean, if you might flip to that next slide, I'd appreciate that. So last month, the governor's Office of Boards and Commission, that of course is the group responsible for coordinating all of your appointments and managing over 350 different boards and commissions across Colorado, sent out guidance on how meetings should take place for the foreseeable future. And while they have not mandated virtual meetings, they are very strongly encouraging all of those for the foreseeable future to be remote. And that's why we're doing that this way today. And then they did include some guidance if we do have to have a meeting in person. And I would say our meeting with CAOA was one that's important enough that would justify an in-person meeting at the chair's discretion. Mr. Chair, that discretion to hold a meeting in person still vests with you and the rest of your fellow board members. So with that, what will need to happen is if a meeting will need to take place in person, just for all of you board members, you will need to attest to myself your vaccination status. You do not need to provide me with any proof or anything like that. You just need to let me know that what your status is. And if that's not the case, they would ask that you attend virtually. Sean, you can go ahead and go to the next one.
To attest, Dave, is that just more of a email or is it a form? Okay.
There will be a form, Mr. Chair, that they're going to put together that if we do have a meeting in person, you'll all get asked to submit in person. So a couple of things, just again, standard protocol. They've asked us to make sure we articulate to our board members. And again, I sent all of this to you individually previously, wearing a mask at all times if you're inside in a public meeting, maintaining social distancing and following any local restrictions and things like that. Next slide, Sean. And then this talks a little bit more about the attestation. And again, if you're not feeling well, let us know. And then of course, if you are, after a meeting found to be COVID positive, they've asked that you share that information so that the rest of the folks can be advised of that were at the meeting. The last thing there is that all board administrators would be required to attend state-sponsored training about all of this information. Caitlin and I did complete that training last week, so we have checked that box with the governor's office. Sean, you could do the next slide. And so that's really it. Again, here's the part with the vaccinations and all of that. And I just want to make sure you're all aware of the protocol for our meetings going forward. So as we get closer to Mr. Chair, the meeting with CAOA in February, we'll circle back, see if this guidance has changed or been rescinded at all. But I just wanted to make sure you all knew that, again, in short, boards like us have been encouraged to meet remotely unless absolutely necessary that we meet in person.
And just like we did for this meeting, Dave and I will review this criteria before we do each meeting. And obviously we've already identified that the February 1st and 2nd meeting, it would be important that we do meet in person. So does anybody have any concerns or questions about that approach? Okay.
Great. And if you do have questions you'd like offline, feel free to reach out to myself or Caitlin, and we can help you with any of that. So that's all I had on that, Mr. Chair.
Okay. All right. So let's go to item number 15, other matters by the public and members. Todd has just informed me nobody has requested any additions. And I think we need to get to the most important one, is the contest for who has the most creative or the ugliest Christmas sweater. Dave, do you have some input on that?
Yeah, I do, Mr. Chair. And I think that, with all due respect to you all as my bosses and my board, I'm imminently disappointed. Maybe with you, Mark, you at least tried a little bit with a Hawaiian shirt. But, the only person that wore a ugly Christmas sweater is one board member who was not here. George was not able to attend, as he was asked to present to the city council this afternoon. But he did submit this picture to me. And in light of the fact that Mr. Merritt was the only one that clearly wore an ugly Christmas sweater who's not a member of staff, the major award that I have personally procured for that person will go to George Merritt. And so his major award is this major award. So we'll get that to George as soon as possible. And maybe this marvelous prize will inspire all of you next year, just to try a little bit harder. I mean,
yes.
Mr. Mampa, even Mr. Beck
yes.
rolled in with a big sweater, you recall, several years ago. So
yes.
anyway,
yes.
we appreciate it. It's a lot of fun, and we'll have our staff holiday party here very shortly. So anyway, that's it. Congratulations to Mr. Merritt for being the major award winner for 2021.
Hey, Dave, be careful with that. It's fragile.
It is fragile, Mark. You're right. You're absolutely right.
Well, that's excellent. And yes, I apologize. My predecessors would be disappointed in how I failed them and my fellow board members in not participating. So we'll do it next year if I get confirmed. So
well, that would be good, Mr. Mampa. And if the meeting is in person next year, it'll be just like a fancy restaurant that if you show up without a jacket, one will be provided for you, and you
yes.
won't have a choice about which one you get to wear. So maybe we'll do it that way.
I suddenly feel inspired. Thank you. And then are you doing one for staff, a separate one for staff there, Dave?
No, sir. We all will do our own personal recognition at our holiday party. So I don't have anything for you here personally,
Okay.
but I will stand up and model
Dave
the one
wins.
that my daughter helped me put together. I think it's pretty fantastic. So anyway.
Yeah, well, I'm willing to throw my name in for yours, so I like it. So, okay, well, I don't see, is there any last minute requests? I don't see anything from Todd, so I think we could probably go ahead and adjourn our meeting. So thank you all for attending, and I appreciate your time and the circumstances, and let's just hope that overall from the protocols and that we have established that maybe let's just hope that it won't be as necessary as we go into the new year. So let's just hope for the best. And everyone, I want to wish you a wonderful holiday and your family. And we have so much to be thankful for. And I certainly am very thankful for all of you and all of your hard work throughout the year. And it's just a pure honor to be serving and working with you all. So thank you.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you, everybody.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Thanks.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
All right.
Merry Christmas.